Hi, hello, and welcome to a midweek edition of the Dunker Spot. We are underneath the Basketball News Podcast Network umbrella. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Steve Jones Jr. How are you, sir?
Doing well, doing great, fantastic, excited to be here with your big juice. Hashtag big time. We'll get to that in a second. Salute to all the dunkers out there. Way to embrace your bounce. Nekias, congratulations, man. I do mean that. Congratulations.
Thank
Credentialed
you.
for a playoff game. Let's give it up for him. Everybody give it up for him.
Appreciate it, man.
In all seriousness, your journey has been great to watch from where you started to where you are, to have that moment. And there's always a tweet, I feel like, for every moment that you achieve. Somehow there's always one. But that's awesome. You put the work in and you deserve it. I'm really glad you get to go on your 6th trip to Atlanta.
See, there it is. I was waiting on the other shoe to drop, and there's the shoe. But yes, we are recording on a Wednesday night. Jazz Grizzlies game 2 just started, actually. But recording on a Wednesday night, I am flying into Atlanta on Thursday. I will be in the house, credentialed for game 3.
PJ?
PJ?
Got the PJ going?
I'm not doing this with you. Anyway, I will be credentialed at State Farm Arena. First playoff game. I'm very excited. Thank you for the kind words to kick things off. I am ready to watch and experience some playoff basketball in person. So just excited to see how that goes. As far as hashtag Big Juice concerns, we are not sponsored by any juice companies yet, but if I don't accomplish anything else with this podcast, I want to see if we can get the Martinelli sponsorship, like just the best apple juice in the world. That's a free promo. If they want to give us some paid promo, just, dunkerspot@yahoo.com. We can set that up.
Hey, look, man, if you can pull it off, I got kids. They love sparkling cider, so we're good.
See, there you go. We are the unofficial home of Martinelli's apple juice. Anyway, before we dig into some playoff basketball takes, we had, stop me if you heard this before. Kyrie Irving is in headlines for something that he said, and the people did not like it. As we are again recording on a Wednesday night, so Thursday night we will get game 3 of Nets Celtics. Kyrie Irving will be returning to Boston, and Kyrie was asked about his return, in which he said, and I quote, "It's not my first time being an opponent in Boston, so I'm just looking forward to competing with my teammates, and hopefully we can just keep it strictly basketball. There's no belligerence or racism going on, subtle racism, people yelling stuff from the crowd. But even if it is, it's part of the nature of the game, and we're just going to focus on what we can control." And as you might expect, there was a subset of people that did not enjoy that commentary from Kyrie Irving. Celtic fans were quite upset about it. We even had a little bit of a rant from Kendrick Perkins about it. I was talking to Steve about it a little bit earlier today just to see where he was. Steve, I'll concede the floor to you. Where are you at on this Kyrie stuff again?
I didn't even know it happened, to be honest with you. You said you want to talk about Kyrie, and I was like, what do you mean? And so, honestly, where I'm at with it is it didn't do much for me, the actual quote. It felt like he was like, yo, just don't while out. And that turned into this. And what I don't like about it is I just don't like moving the goalpost to kind of list these reasons why you don't like Kyrie and you want to boo him and how he failed in Boston. Like, that's a whole separate conversation. Like, there has to be a point where you acknowledge what someone says and not take it personally and move it to an arena where you can really have that kind of conversation that's easier for you to have. What Kyrie did to Boston fans, I don't feel like is the same as what Kyrie is talking about. I feel like that's fair to say. And if you want to boo Kyrie, boo your heart out. But Boston has a history for a reason. Bill Russell said the things he said for a reason. Marcus Smart has said some of the things he said on the reason. This is Googleable stuff. Like, you can do a quick Google search and you can find some things out. So if there's a sensitivity to maybe the progress that has been made there, I could probably understand that. If there's a feeling like that's not acknowledged, I can understand that. But don't take what Kyrie Irving said and turn it into this whole fest where you're recording videos and saying, this is why I'm going to boo you because you're this and that. You didn't do this and that. That's not what he's talking about. That's not what he's talking about. That makes you feel better. He hit a soft spot. I get it. Like the conspiracy theories where it's like, oh, Kyrie's just trying to take the attention. He's going to get booed no matter what. Mm-hmm. Everyone in the world knows that. Like, this is not some conspiracy theory. Why do you think Kyrie, king of the casuals, would decide, yo, facing my former team with the probably, you could say, two of the best, well, no, the two best players I've played with, like combined. That's no shade to LeBron. Don't cut that up. And we're up 2-0 in the series. Why would I take this time to not just be on top of the world? You know, it's just like, it's another example of like wanting transparency from athletes until you actually get transparency from athletes. And then you don't know what to do with it. Like, I just don't like it. It's nasty to me. Like, don't prop up KG loving experience or Kendrick Perkins loving experience. Most Celtics who played for Boston enjoyed their time because they were Celtics. And if this didn't exist, the narrative wouldn't be present. I guess I'll put it that way. Rant over. But it's nasty. Stop moving the goalposts on things. Acknowledge what people are saying. Listen to them. Don't diminish their thoughts. And we could actually have some version of progress.
There we go. Like, to that point, like if Kyrie says, hey, I hope there isn't going to be any racism or subtle racism. If your first rebuttal is, hey, what are you talking about? There's no racism here. Why are you pushing back so hard? Like, I don't, if it isn't there, then you could just brush off the comment.
You could easily say, yo, me too. You stink. Like, you can still, you know what? That's a great thing you said. Boo. Where's the meme where the worst person on earth made a good point? You could use that. There's mad things you could do. I don't understand why we have to go here.
It's odd. And like, this is all you said that wasn't what Kyrie was talking about, which is true, but also it is what he's talking about because he's like, hey, let's keep it basketball. So if you want to boo him for him not taking your team to the Eastern Conference Finals or whatever, or you want to boo him for leaving your team for another team, that is within the realm of basketball. So there was no need for like rants in front of, rants on the sidewalk, because what you are planning on booing him for fits what is quote unquote allowed for you to boo him for. So it's just, I don't know. It was very odd. Just an odd response in a long line of odd responses to things that Kyrie has said.
And I feel like people don't listen to what he says. But I'm just, it's like, honestly, it's the reaction to what Kyrie does that is turning into the exhausting part. Because now you got to figure out, what did Kyrie actually say? And then you got to parse through all the responses and be like, how do we get here? And then it's just like, I'm done with it.
And with that, I am done with it too. Like, I don't have much to add. Like, actually, while we're here, is there anything meaningful to take from Celtics Nets right now outside of a massive talent gap?
The Nets have the Celtics in the sharpshooter right now. The Nets are figuring some things out, and they're showcasing what they can do offensively. And we're starting to see some of those lineups that we haven't seen. We talked about in the regular season that we saw the Nets kind of making those growths offensively. And it was like, this would be really good if they had all their guys. And now they have all their guys. So you have a scenario where Blake Griffin screens, rolls, and just out of habit, defense helps. It's a skip, I think, to Kyrie, to Joe Harris, open three. Mm-hmm. What do you do? Like, it's kind of a what do you do scenario. And like, that's where I was like, this is kind of a good get right series for the Nets as far as figuring some things out, taking some hits, getting the ball moving, finding your lineups out, and getting back to where you think you should be before you hit it. Because that next round, the East is going to be nuts. Like, It's gonna be go time.
Yeah, no matter who gets out, like at this point, it's looking like, and we'll talk a little bit about it later, but even if we don't pick a winner in that Heat Buck series, like one of those two teams are going to prevent at least some problems for this Nets team, even if you feel like they're favored. Like Miami has the kind of defensive personnel that can make Brooklyn work a little bit, and they have one of the best coaches in the league on the sideline. They kind of scheme up some things. And then if not them, it's Milwaukee with Giannis, who poses a very unique problem. They also have solid defensive personnel they could throw out to match up with Brooklyn's big three. So obviously we'll talk about whatever series ends up happening down the road. But to your point, it is good that even against this depleted Celtics team, the Nets are starting to find some flow. Like the first half of game one, in which, you know, shots didn't go down, but also the process didn't seem great. But then that process improved in the second half. And then we get to game two, and you know, Joe Harris has 16 in the first quarter or something like that. Like the ball was just pinging around. If they can get those little things going now, like that's going to be a big boost for them as they get into the tougher rounds of the postseason.
No, yeah, and I don't want to diminish Boston. They're in a tough spot, but man, I feel bad for Evan Fournier. I don't know what he did. I don't know who he upset, but they went at that man in game two, and he had enough. Hey, salute to him for standing up to himself for himself.
He had to do so. Like I remember, I ended up tweeting about it during the second quarter. I was like, okay, Kemba Walker is like 5'11". He's on the floor right now. Jabari Parker is on the floor right now. And every trip down, it's a high screen to find Evan Fournier. And I'm just like, what? This has to be personal, because there are two markedly worse defenders on the floor, and you are targeting the same person over and over again.
I don't know if they did a Google search. I don't know what happened, but they had enough of him, and he had enough of them. Like, hey man, I didn't sign up. I didn't sign up for this. Like, this is not what we're doing. So, salute to him.
I mean, if they Googled him, then I would understand them being upset. I will leave that there. Also, before we move forward, I just want to make sure I have the tweet right. You said that James Harden and also Kevin Durant are better than LeBron. Is that what you said? I want to make sure I have the direct quote. Is that accurate? Is that
nope? Nah.
You said they are both better teammates than LeBron. Is that what
I said two? He's not had the two. If it's slander anywhere, it's towards Kevin Love. Salute to Kevin Love though.
I see.
Try to trap me. Hey, do you want to revisit your Blake Griffin can't roll take?
I mean, sure. What? I don't think the viewers can't see this yet until the pod hits YouTube. But Steve got very close to the camera, awaiting my answer here. Blake does have a little bit more juice than I was expecting. Maybe not Martinelli's apple juice level juice, but he does in fact have a little bit more juice. He had a couple of nice dunks in game two. Hashtag vintage floating down the timeline. It was very cool. So good for him. Just another positive contributor to this very talented Brooklyn Nets team.
Oh, wow. Look at the end of that. All right, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. I'll take what I can get.
I feel like that was pretty diplomatic. What's the issue?
It was, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. I had a couple takes about tonight's games that were played prior to our recording.
Go for it.
Quickly on Philadelphia, Washington. So Washington had a Joel Embiid problem, and then they had a Tobias Harris problem, and now it looks like they have a Ben Simmons problem, which is about 3 problems too many. So I don't know where that series is going, but I don't know if the Wizards can drum up a spell in this one.
Boo. Boo.
And then on the Knicks, Julius Randle figured some things out. They made some adjustments, set some high pick and roll for him, empty corner pick and roll. He was able to turn the corner, started being aggressive against the help, finishing against Capella, driving and kicking. Very interesting because they need him. Like, if he's not going to be Julius Randle, this series can't go their way. because that and the length against Barrett makes it tough. But also, they also benched Elfrid Payton in the second half, so that's a victory for y'all. And Knicks fans everywhere were lit in the Garden. Poor guy.
Just wanted to point out that the New York Knicks won this game 101-92. That is a 9-point win. Elfrid Payton was a -7 in 5 minutes, and I'm not sure how that happens exactly, but it's a solid adjustment by Tom Thibodeau by not putting him back in after the initial stint. So good for him. Also on the Knicks side, one adjustment that I did notice, particularly in the second half, they did start trapping Trae Young a little bit more in pick and roll. And I was wondering if that felt like the natural counter to me for what he did in pick and roll, because if they're just going to play their base coverage, then Trae is always going to have something. He's going to have a pull-up three. He's going to have a floater. He's going to have those kickouts to the corner. If they're running double drag, just by virtue of the way the Knicks defend, they're always going to have that popper that, I guess, depending on who screens first. But Collins is going to be there. If they use a guard as kind of that popper, that was going to be there. So it was nice to see them start throwing some traps, use their size against Trae, because Trae is, as good as he is, he's always going to be the smallest guy on the floor. So just making him pass over the top or pass out of it early, kind of dare him to make the read on time. You're daring whoever he's passing it to, typically a big, who, between John Collins and Clint Capella, neither of those guys are like elite short roll guys in terms of the passing and quick decision making. And then beyond that, dare Trae Young to get rid of the ball and then actually do something when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. Because one thing that we've talked about in earlier episodes of the pod is that if Trae doesn't have the ball in his hands, he does have the tendency to just kind of spectate, just kind of hang around. So getting the ball out of his hands takes him, he's not an on-ball threat if he doesn't have the ball. And if he's not moving, then you kind of mitigate that and you're able to kind of reset your defense behind that. So it was interesting that the Knicks went to that, did have some success. I want to see how the Hawks counter that in game 3. That's going to be something that I'll be watching in person. Very excited. But that was something that stood out to me.
Big time. I love it. 2 hours and 30 minutes on the Hawks Knicks, coming to you guys next Monday.
Love to see it. Love to see it. I'm very excited for the quarter by quarter breakdown of that game on Monday's pod. So I hope you're all ready. Okay, just kidding. We're probably not going to do that, but there will be a deeper dive into Knicks Hawks once we record on Sunday night. By the time we record on Sunday night, both games 3 and 4 will be in the books. So we're going to dig deep, see what adjustments have been made, who's performing, who isn't, all that good stuff. We'll talk about some other series as well. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we are recording on a Wednesday night. We are recording during Jazz Grizzlies, so we don't know what's happening in game 2 yet. But we did want to revisit game 1 since we recorded during game 1 on Sunday night. So wanted to revisit that. Steve, I'll give you the floor first. I know I think I'm going to have more to say on this game than you are. What were your primary takeaways from that game?
Memphis is not going away anytime soon. That was my big thing. They're just fighting, scrapping. You can see the stretch that they went through before the end of the season starting to pay off during this run now. Just to take the blow they took with the Utah run and continue to deliver. I thought offensively, their game plan to attack the paint was great. I thought the ways they opened things up was great. I'm sure you'll touch on that. I did want to touch on the defense because it's going to be an interesting battle as the series goes on. They were extremely active. And during the season, they were great at getting deflections, getting in the paint. But as far as the rotations they did against Utah in game 1, I was pretty impressed. Their bodies were everywhere. So what they did was, they kept Jonas in a drop, and then they kind of showed help, but the help was more, hey, I know you're about to kick out. I'm going to play the passing lanes. So it's kind of similar to what Minnesota did to them early in the regular season. But they were flying around on every drive. There was a drive. Utah's big in the drive and kick, but hey, drive 2-3 guys right there in front of you. Wasn't perfect, wasn't the best, quote unquote, scheme wise, but they got the job done. And that really did a good job of disrupting Utah's rhythm, because Utah's counter to the drop is either pull up 3 or they get to that drive and kick and force you in rotation. And that's going to be kind of the push and pull that I'm watching for during this series. can Memphis keep that activity up as Utah gets Donovan Mitchell back, as Utah gets some of their lineups back, and as Utah is a team that punishes teams for getting in rotation. So it's going to be kind of the yin yang of Memphis having to fly around to take things away, and Utah wanting them to fly around to get their attack going. So that's kind of the part that I was fascinated about. But that Memphis defense was working, man. And even if they were working, Utah still had some automatic looks. So I can't wait to see how that develops going forward.
Right, like as you make the point about the defense, I agree with you. It was very active. A lot of deflections. I'm just pulling up the box score real quick. Memphis did have 12 steals in that game by virtue of what you were talking about, just kind of flying around, showing the help that they did, just having the hands active in the passing lanes, to be able to get the hands on the balls. Utah, the fact that they lost by 3, did not have Donovan Mitchell. You got a plus defensive effort from Memphis. And like they just couldn't knock down perimeter shots at all. Just an incredibly poor shooting night for Utah, and that was on a lot of open looks. I think that was encouraging for them. As you talk about just sticking with the defense, they're walking into this knowing that, hey, this is a young team that wants to scramble around. Also, they have 2 very clear negatives on the floor among that starting unit, at least. Like Ja Morant is not a good defender right now. Kind of struggles to get through screens, and off the ball, it is an adventure, to be kind. And then there's also Jaren Jackson Jr., who, as I made my thread about the game on Monday afternoon, he just kept popping on my screen with mistakes. He kept getting lost, like just poor depth in the drop, losing shooters. Like if Utah was going with a 2-screener look, he was playing the 4 a lot alongside Jonas Valanciunas, which means he was on Bojan Bogdanovic, and basically any screening action that involved Bojan as a flare guy was trouble for Jaren Jackson Jr. Just could not stay attached to him at all. So I think at bare minimum, Utah is going to be able to pick on that pick and roll combo. They may run some dummy action just to get the defense, get Memphis moving a little bit, and then they can just go right after John Jaren. And I'm a little bit concerned about what that's going to look like, especially as they get Donovan Mitchell back into the fray. But you still have to give them props for the effort that they showed on the defensive end. Like even within the lapses, they worked hard to correct those on the fly, which I think is encouraging. On the other side of the ball, I wrote a piece about it for basketballnews.com talking about the way that Memphis attacked Utah in pick and roll in particular in that second half. The Grizzlies had a 128.6 offensive rating in the second half, which with a team with this kind of track record of shooting in particular, that's kind of an absurd number. But I like what they did in pick and roll in particular. Like they'd go to these double high looks to where they bring up 2 screeners, 1 to each side of Ja or whoever was the ball handler. Kicked off with like Kyle Anderson midway through the third quarter. He was able to get a couple of good looks out of it. I just like that they kind of forced the Jazz to navigate traffic on top of already being in their drop. So you knew what kind of shots were going to be available, like those pull-ups are going to be available in drop, floaters, pull-ups, whatever. But once you add in that second screener and you have the point of attack guy kind of trying to guess, okay, which screen is he going to use? How do I want to navigate this? If I go to this side, is this guy rolling or is he popping? Is that something else I need to navigate? So just adding that extra variable into it gave Utah some trouble with Kyle Anderson as the ball handler, with Dylan Brooks as the ball handler, especially with Ja Morant as the ball handler. Just you already know teams want to duck picks against him. So once you give that point of attack guy more to think about, and you combine that with Ja's craft and also just the speed that he has, because he was defended by Royce O'Neal a lot, and Josh is flat out faster than that dude, it allowed Ja to get to that floater just about whenever they went to that look. Later in that game, there was one instance where Ja ran a pick and roll in a similar setup. He went to Jaren Jackson Jr.'s side, and Bojan, instead of trying to drop back or just try to stay attached to Jaren, he showed and recovered, and that kind of stymied the action a little bit. So I think that's probably going to be something that they look into a little bit more, just to kind of force Ja to retreat and give that defense some time to get back in order. But all in all, I was very impressed with what I saw from Memphis. Just tremendous effort on both ends of the floor. You got to see Ja just kind of Ja arrived, particularly in that fourth quarter. Like once he got comfortable and got that floater going for him, like he just didn't care. Floaters over, he tortured Derek Favors in space. It almost wasn't funny. And then before Rudy Gobert fouled out, like even in that third quarter, he had some plus possessions against Rudy Gobert as well. There was an empty corner look late in the third quarter where he's in the right corner. He runs a pick and roll with, I think it was JV, and he just kind of freezes him. Rudy Gobert doesn't know if he wants to commit to the role or commit the Ja, and Ja just sprinkles in a float over his head. And it's like, well, if that's what you're able to do against Rudy, like you can't give a guy, even with the kind of limitation that Ja has right now, you give him that much confidence. If he's not scared of you, he already's kind of like a fearless driver anyway. If he's not scared of you, that could be trouble if Utah doesn't come with a strong effort in game two.
No, it's going to be interesting because in theory, I think we kind of went back and forth with this to lead up. Ja's skill set probably seemed to help Utah in a sense. They didn't have the pull up so you could play drop, but Ja's also got the ability to always crash the paint, and now he's got space to do so. So if he's finishing over Gobert, finishing through him, that changes the math. I'm just very interested to see, again, if Utah can pick their pace back up, their tempo. You know, that's something we've talked about this season. And in game one, Memphis kind of was able to drag them down, you know, by being physical, denying some of the off-ball movement, got them up against the clock, which is when Utah kind of struggles. So it'll be interesting to see if Utah get that movement back, force those rotations, get the ball moving. And then quick question, I don't want to stay too long on this. Memphis Grizzly hit 2 3-pointers in game one. Do you know who that was?
No, Steve cannot think of it for the life of me. Who was it?
Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks.
Surely that can't be the answer.
No, Dillon Brooks, the fourth player in Grizzlies history to score 30-plus points in a playoff game. Him, Zebo, Mike Conley, and Marc Gasol. So he's a Grizzlies legend.
Yeah.
There was another one who hit 2 3-pointers too.
There it is. Who would that be?
Desmond Main.
Okay. I was like, there's no way he's about to throw a change up like this. Oh man. Anyway, game two is currently in progress right now. We will dig deeper on this series as well on Monday's episode. We record that on Sunday night, so stay tuned for that. Let's dig into Denver-Portland a little bit. Denver responded with a 128-109 victory in game two. They got 38, 8, and 6 for Nikola Jokic, got 18 for Michael Porter Jr., got 15 and 7 for Paul Millsap off the bench. Aaron Gordon with 13 and 6, but came through with a huge role on defensive in the second half of that game, took the Damian Lillard assignment, and Dame struggled. Dame finished the game with 42 and 10, but I believe 32 of those points came in the first half.
He fit Damian Lillard slander into a 42-point performance. It's incredible at this point, guys.
How is that slander? I was relating it to Aaron Gordon's performance. Aaron Gordon took on the Damian Lillard assignment and did a good job.
Continue.
Dame couldn't be stopped in the first half. Aaron Gordon did a good job on in the second half. That would help explain the disparity in points between the two halves. That's all I was saying. It's not slander. That's praise for Aaron Gordon. Can't believe I got the Well, I'll bounce it back to you. How did you feel about Aaron Gordon on Damian Lillard? Is that something that you anticipate seeing throughout the rest of the series?
Well, I salute Denver for making that adjustment. At the time they did. They didn't have to go to it then. They probably could have run it out a little bit longer, but they were trying to get that win. They went towards it, and that was it. Now, the reason that adjustment is big is because on paper, Gordon can contest the shots, the pull-ups. He can stay down and contest the step back, and then he can navigate screens and in theory would be able to contain a drive or late contest to Dame's drives, which is usually his counter. So that's pretty good. My big takeaway from it was less to praise Gordon and more wondering why Portland didn't really do anything to put pressure on Denver for making that move. Because here's the thing, when you make that move, You're acknowledging something. That's the thing about adjustments in the playoffs or trying to preemptively do something. You're acknowledging, hey, this is an issue. We're trying to fix it.
Mhm.
And if that adjustment gets beat, you're in a little bit of a pickle. Which is why I don't know if I want to see Gordon on Dame the entire time. Like, I feel like you keep that in your back pocket a little bit, because if you allow Portland to figure that out, where do you go next? That would be my issue with throwing it out the entire time. Just a theory. How impressed were you? I'll ask that question before I continue on with my praise for Denver's defense.
I was very impressed. Like, Aaron Gordon is good at navigating screens. He's not great at navigating screens. So I was kind of waiting on the other shoe to drop, because I definitely get the argument to putting him on. Bigger body, can contest, can muscle Dame a little bit if he does try to get downhill, get some contested at the rim as well. So I got the move. I was just worried about, all right, what happens if Portland is not just a regular high pick and roll? What happens if they throw out some Spain? What happens if they like if they go to some wheel action or something? Like, what happens if they make him chase Dame around a little bit before they set up the high pick and roll? Like, what is that going to look like? And to your point, Portland never really stressed him that way. I think that's low hanging fruit for them in game 3. So I worry about that aspect of it. Let me ask you a question before you jump back on Denver's defense, because I was listening to the Game Theory podcast with Sam Vecini. He had Dave Dufour on, and they were talking about this matchup. And I believe it was Dave that made the suggestion that maybe Denver should start Shaq Harrison and give him the Dame assignment a little bit early. And then you can mix in the Aaron Gordon matchup as well, instead of going to that from jump or having that as your only option among the starters.
The only problem with the Shaq Harrison deal is if it doesn't work and then you don't score, you've handed Portland something. You know what I mean? So I don't like starting Shaq Harrison. I think he should get minutes, especially if Dame has it going. He should definitely get some more of the assignment. Boy, there was a lot of Shaq Harrison content on my timeline. I missed his stretch, and I was like, wow, that's some pretty good activity. But that was also like 2 plays. Like, but that's neither here nor there. I won't go that route.
Shaq Harrison slander?
No.
Okay.
Shaq Harris Seymour. That's what I want to see.
You couldn't have even felt good about that one.
It didn't feel good coming off my fingers. It's fine. Shooters got to shoot. So I just don't know if I would like to start that, because you kind of want the offense of Campazzo and Rivers to kind of at least get a flow and keep putting pressure on Portland, which I had a point on that and here in a little bit, but I don't think it's something you have to do.
Okay.
Sprinkle his minutes in more, but
fair enough. The floor is still yours. I just wanted to bounce that on you.
I heard the real adjustment that Denver did defensively was taking away the rotate, or doing a better job rotating and pick and roll, and taking away Portland's options. So I'll go back, watch the tape. Portland loves that empty side pick and roll, or really any pick and roll in general. And they were carving Denver up in game 1, just carving them up. Probably the best ball movement I've seen from Portland. In game 2, Denver made a slight adjustment. The weak side low man, guarding the man in the corner, rotated early to Nurkic, already there on the roll. The second man on that wing dropped down and took away the corner pass. So essentially what they told Nurkic is, hey, we're here on your roll, and hey, you can't make this corner pass. This is the guy you have to throw to. And so what that did was limited the options, limited the space, and they picked their poison. So you're not going to be able to slice us up like you did in game 1. This is the pass right here. And the second part of all that was Jokic's recovery. So when he would show high, he would recover and basically come towards the middle of where Nurkic was. So even if you really wanted to fire that wing pass, if he hesitated just a little bit, space was gone. Denver recovered. And by doing that, it just kind of put Portland back in the same pickle they've been in the regular season, where we created an advantage, we don't get anything out of it, now we have to reset and try again, as opposed to game 1 where they were just creating, taking advantage in a flow. And so that was a key one for me. And I want to see what Portland does in game 3 with their spacing, knowing that's coming from Denver. Because if Portland's not going to have that in pick and roll, it's going to be a real tough climb. And like they were in that game mainly because Dame kept them around. And then once that kind of went south, the Denver Nuggets took off. So I'm interested to see how Portland handles that and readjust, because that movement, when it's there, is great, but we've seen over the course of the season when it disappears, they struggle.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Just a quick note on Jokic.
Wait, did you say that's a good point? Folks, write that down. That's the first time. That's the first time I didn't get fair enough.
What do you, I didn't know that this was being tracked.
Oh yeah, the dunkers, they tell me.
That fair enough is my concession of choice?
Yeah, how do you think I learned about good for him?
Wow. Where are the dunkers that work for me? That's crazy. That's okay. I will I'll keep that in mind. We'll see. We'll see who the real dunkers are. That's fine. That is fine with me. Just even bouncing back on game theory real quick. Sam made the great point, something I knows as well. Like the positioning of Jokic offensively was a little bit different. There was a little bit more action in the middle of the floor, just to put more stress on Portland. I think that kind of forced them to help a little bit more. Still not a high assist game by Jokic standards, but I mean, 5 is a lot higher than 1. So I think it's positive they were able to kind of generate some more rotations, for some more help, kind of get Portland's defense scrambled a little bit more. And Jokic just continues to eat Yusuf Nurkic alive. And like I am just like, there isn't a good answer for Jokic to begin with, but like Jokic is playing better on those post ups than even I thought he would. I mean, Nurkic is at least a strong dude, and it feels like it just hasn't even mattered what he's done. Like Jokic just gets to his spots, and even if he doesn't, then it's a fadeaway. So it's just like, whew.
No, Jokic is playing completely unbothered on a different level. I mean, when you come off a stagger, shot fake, wait for the defense to recover, and still fire, you're doing something different. I thought not just the positioning of Denver, but also just their mindset. Like even to open the game, when they go to Rivers and Campasso with handoffs and screens, and those guys drive hard, what that did was make them threats, and what that did was put Nurk in a tough spot. So Nurkic all of a sudden was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's the last thing you want him to do. In game 1, it was automatic. He knew his job. He knew his role. He completed it well. But now all of a sudden, Rivers is turning the corner. I'm supposed to help, but Jokic is popping. What do? I'm out of position. And I thought that was what Denver did a really good job of. They forced Portland to move. They didn't give them the same automatics. And the guys who had struggled in game 1 became threats. Paul Millsap shot faking and driving. Monty Morris taking pull-ups, drawing help, that kind of thing. And Michael Porter Jr. was great offensively. Portland didn't have an answer for when he was coming off handoffs and just pulling up. So it'll be interesting to see, because let's be honest with each other. This should be a 7-game series, but if Denver is going to get 5 non-Jokic scorers in double figures, then I think we know where the series is going to end. Portland can't win that way. But it'll be interesting to see. I want to see if Portland get Dame and CJ going. Norm and CJ going. I think you know what you got in Dame. They got to get those other 2 going.
This has been it's 2 games. But like, even as CJ shot better in game 2, like it's just felt like a weird series for him so far. Like he was kind of off in game 1. He shoots better in game 2, but it didn't feel like he really made an impact, if that makes sense. Like it felt like his buckets were quiet.
Back to the full CJ slander too.
I feel like I'm not allowed to say anything about anyone in Portland's backcourt at this point. But like I don't.
Well, here's the thing: they're not necessarily giving him the same reads. He's not getting the same room. They're kind of actually treating him with a little bit more respect than I thought they would coming in. I thought he would get dropper switches, but it's been a little bit more activity with him, which has been interesting. So It's interesting to see how they'll get him loose, and especially if it's going to be a scenario where, say, they put Gordon on Dame, if he has Campazzo and or Rivers or Porter Jr. on him, is that time for him to all of a sudden do what he does?
I would hope so. Like you're gonna need to have someone take some pressure off of Dame. And I think to your earlier point about Denver just kind of taking away the corner skip, like I wonder if they're gonna start. I wonder if they're going to shift around the spacing and where they place these guys in pick and roll. If it's Dame or CJ Handling, do you just put Norm on the wing instead of the corner? Since that's the pass they want to take away, and then that kind of opens up Norm for more catch and shoot looks, or if Denver scrambles out to him, now he can get downhill and kind of force the action that way. Because I think that's him not being a real corner threat. I think that hurts the offensive value there because he's knocked down from the corners, and also it's, I mean, just by virtue of the corner being shorter, it's also a shorter drive for him. He drives with so much fury to begin with. So maybe that's a small counter Portland makes heading into game 3.
Well, I'd imagine we see more double pick and roll. I'd imagine we see possibly one guy on the weak side, maybe 2, not 3, so Denver can't go to the automatics. Portland's going to have to bend their spacing a little bit to take away what Denver's trying to do. They can't just feed them the 3 because it's too easy right now.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on to another series. Where are you at on the Clippers at this point?
Confused, as I seem to always be with them. I don't understand how they got into this spot. And they don't just have a Luka problem, they have a Mavericks problem now. You know, they have a drive and kick problem. They have a Tim Hardaway Jr. problem. The defensive game plan, I'm not sure what it is. And let's credit Dallas and let's credit Luka because he has made some shots, boy. He has made some shots. And it feels like anytime the Clippers come close to some sort of rhythm or, hey, we're going to pick this coverage, he immediately makes them pay. How you want to keep Ibaka to drop here? I'm going to just go right into him, shoot a fadeaway. I'm going to put Paul George on me, sweet. Fade away for him. Kawhi on me, I'll post him up, fade away. You want to go under and pick and roll, pull up 3. Like just the timing of how he's just been like, no, has been crazy, which I don't think helps the Clippers do that. But it's been a weird series. Like, I don't know what happened to Zubac. He's been tortured by a bunch of contested shots, but also he got beat on a drive by Maxi Kleber. And he's like solid defense guy. I don't know what happened to Serge Ibaka. He seemed to be brought in for a difference maker, switch, big, all this good stuff. He's in a drop. I'm confused. You could have put DeMarcus Cousins in for that. But I mean, the defensive breakdowns are terrible. You know what? Go ahead. You say what you're gonna say. I'm gonna get fired up.
No, like the only thing I was about to jump in with is like Serge played 5 minutes, and I don't get why he only played 5 minutes. Like that part just odd. I'm gonna let you go because I feel like you have.
Well, here I'll talk about that point. Think about it. Neither of their bigs are guarding well, and their small lineup isn't working well defensively. So where do you go?
I mean, I'd at least try the guy that can space it out a little bit and operate in space a little bit better than Zubac, at least in theory. Like I would imagine conditioning is the issue that they're having with him right now since he's been out for so long. But like also, it's getting kind of dire. Like it's not that it's a 2-0 lead. It's a 2-0 lead heading into Dallas. And it's a 2-0 lead in which in neither of the 2 games have you looked like you've had a plan on defense. I mean, you squint hard enough. I won't even say squint hard enough. You know they want to switch. Dallas knows they want to switch. And like with Kawhi on Luka in particular, like there was more effort to kind of stay attached and not switch into easy stuff. but Luka was able to string them out and force them to switch anyway. And then once Luka got the switch, it just didn't matter from there. So that was odd. I was also confused by some of the rotation choices. Like, talk about Serge, I get that part. Like, why is Nick Batum playing less than Reggie Jackson? Why is he playing less than Patrick Beverly? Like, why do you have any fewer than like 3, 6, 8 dudes on the floor at all times for the Clippers? Because that just shouldn't happen.
You're thinking they should go with a big small lineup. So what's their best lineup to you, in your opinion? PG, Kawhi, Batum.
PG, yeah. So Kawhi, PG, Batum, Morris, and then a fifth. Like if that's
Serge?
like it could be Serge. If you want a small out there, then I guess Rondo's probably your best bet because he can at least give you the passing boost, and he has the wingspan to where like he's what 6'1", 6'2", but like the wingspan makes up for it a little bit. He's also smart, so like maybe it's those five, but like at the end of the game, it's Patrick Beverly and Reggie Jackson on the floor together, and it's just like, did you just not watch what happened in Game 1? Were you just not there for the regular season series? Were you not there for the postseason series last season, in which Reggie Jackson just got completely torched whenever he was? If his shoe was on the court with Luka, Luka was looking for him. Like I don't get it. Like we can quibble about what the limitations are for whatever scheme the Clippers want to throw out there. And we've had that conversation. And I feel like we're going to continue to have that conversation as the series goes along. But like just from a personnel standpoint, you should understand fundamentally, we really can't afford to have a small guard on the court, period, when Luka's on the floor. We sure as heck can't have two. Because all he's going to do is pick out one and then hunt both in pick and roll. And then what do? Let's blitz Luka Doncic with 2 6'3" dudes. Like, let's switch our small guards to see who gets beat quicker. Like, I don't get the plan there.
The hashtag is Big Mad, folks.
I'm a bit confused, is what I am.
I don't know. You called him Reggie Laxon right now, so
I'll give you that one. That was pretty good. I'll allow it.
okay. Let's remix it. Let's get off the Clippers defense a little bit because I think everyone and their mom can see it, and we can always discuss it as this goes on. Are you at all worried about the Clippers offense?
After going back through it, like there was a little bit more emphasis to get to the rim, which is great. The shooting did bounce back from Game 1, which is great. I cannot remember which one of my followers tweeted this, but I think the Clippers had a 121 offensive rating in Game 2, which is great. But then I also have the possession in my head where Paul George gets Kristaps Porzingis on a switch and he dribbles in place and then he takes one step forward and then he steps back and takes a three over Kristaps and misses. And I'm just like, why? It's that the old Vine clip of the white pastor. Why?
Wait, you're old enough for Vine?
What do you? How old do you think I am? Wait a minute.
My bad. Continue.
Sheesh. Okay. Anyway, it just, I don't know, man. I guess I'm less concerned about the offense than I was in Game 1, but also there are still these blips in which they don't attack nearly consistently enough. I don't feel like they hammer home like those kind of mismatches in space enough for me.
Here's my issue with the Clippers offense right now. I don't think they've really been able to bend Dallas's defense to a point where Dallas is concerned and overreacting or over rotating, and the Clippers are able to generate some of the looks that they were able to create in the regular season. To your point, Paul George came out, I think, first quarter driving. Kawhi went off scoring, but the Mavericks didn't really change much. And that said a lot to me. Because I think Dallas has done a really good job as far as discipline goes of, we're going to make it tough on you. We're going to help when it makes sense, but we're not going to overdo it. And any of these kickouts or any of these swings, we're going to close out, we're going to contest, we're going to try to make all these shots tough. And they've been able to hold on to that game plan discipline. I don't know where the Clippers can go to kind of make Dallas think twice. Because even when they go mismatch hunting, I think Kawhi had a couple post-ups against Brunson, and they doubled that because you don't want that. But they've shown a willingness if Kawhi or PG is on Luka or Porzingis, go ahead. We're going to stay home. Go ahead. And that is where I think the Clippers have to get to, because we can talk about the defense all day, but if they're not scoring and it's not a team deal on that end, and they're unable to hit and create those same threes, then you're really in an uphill battle. So that's something I kind of was intrigued by, kind of watching that back. Like, Dallas has done a pretty good job, but I just don't know if the Clippers can bend it,
Yeah, and to your point, just to make a very basic box score observation here that kind of speaks to what you were talking about, forcing the Mavericks to get in rotation and, get the others involved. Kawhi had 41. Great. Paul George has 28. Great. Both of those guys scored at a high level, did so efficiently. Reggie Jackson had 15 off the bench, did so on 12 shots. That's it for your double figure scores. Not just it for your double figure scores. Those three are the only guys that took double digit shots. So there's no real spreading the wealth in that way. It's 23 assists on 45 shots, 45 made shots, which is okay. But I don't know. Like, they have two very talented shot makers. They have a bunch of shooters. So, like, I feel like they can kind of conjure up a solid offensive rating almost by accident. But the process does still feel a bit wonky at times. Again, they did get to the rim more in game 2. They need to continue that progress, because even going back to our earlier pods during the regular season, once the Clippers really perked up, it's because they went from like a bottom 3 or bottom 5 team in terms of rim rate to like average. They were never great in terms of the frequency of the rim. But once they got that to average in conjunction with what they were already doing the shooting, then the offense really took off then. So, like, the bar isn't completely out of reach for them. Like, if they're just average in terms of getting to the rim, they have enough shooters to make teams pay. So they just need to continue to get to that. But man, like, I know you said we talked about defense, and we have talked about defense a lot, but defense is such a problem. It's such a problem. Like, it's made me question like my evaluation of the Clippers throughout the season, because like I've always noticed, the defensive rating isn't great despite the talent. And
I already questioned your evaluation of the Clippers this season.
Hashtag fair enough. But no, I was just kind of like, all right, the defensive rating is great, but they have had guys out. Their starting lineup with Batum had a really, 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 really good defensive rating. I think for most of the season, it was like below 100, that starting five that they had. So I was like, okay, well, moving pieces, they're experimenting a little bit because of the moving pieces. Once they kind of hammer down their rotation and get into the postseason, like, the lineups that matter for them are going to defend well. And that was just kind of the way I thought about it. And now they are tossing out the lineups that matter. And, Patrick Beverley is being told he's too small. You put Kawhi and PG on Luka and KP, and Luka's just like, oh, okay, cool. Let me just call Dorian Finney-Smith over for a screen. Y'all are going to switch that because we don't have to think about anything else, and we're just going to attack him instead. Have fun standing in the corner watching. And it's just like, okay, well, if the lineups that are supposed to defend aren't being able to defend, and then you're also throwing out some weird lineup combinations, like, sure, let's watch Luka torture small guard, so we're going to throw an extra small guard into the lineup too. You're compounding the problem. Just a little concerned about Clippers, I'll say.
Well, I mean, it's not looking great, especially because defensively, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if they know what the answer is. Like, it's one thing to have the coverage that's getting torn apart. It's another thing to where you're searching for it, keep getting beat, and now you're not even sure what you're supposed to do. Like, there were times where they were messing up switches in the fourth quarter of a playoff game. Like, that shouldn't be happening.
Right.
You know, they're trying unders in pick and roll. They're trying everything they can, and none of it's working. And this is the playoffs. Like, you want to have different things you can try. But if you're out here just hoping for something to work, you're in trouble. That's where I'm kind of disappointed. It never felt like the Clippers had that fire, that energy. And the small lineups struggling on both ends, that's where my concern comes, because that was kind of like their ace hand, their ace card. Like, hey, we can play big. Now we can hit you with this. We can come in waves. And it's how about Tim Hardaway Jr. though?
Oh, he's been so freaking good. He's been so he's been I think firmly he's been their second best player. That just what he brings as a shooter, contested or otherwise, behind the arc or like way behind the arc, it kind of doesn't matter at this point. Like, he's on a heater. He's also able to attack closeouts and kind of keep and scramble the Clippers defense that way as well. Just a super impressive effort for him. I still don't know what to make of Kristaps at this point.
Quiet 20, but it was a 20.
It was, but no, I'm not going to call it a hater. It's fine. He did have 20. It's also been an odd series for him. I'll just say that.
Well, I mean, they've just limited his impact. That's the one thing the Clippers have done as far as overall impact. They've kind of taken some of that away. Now, switching Reggie Jackson onto him in the post, probably not the best idea, but I thought they'd done a decent job. If I'm the Clippers, I put all my resources into defending Tim Hardaway Jr. in the same way that they kind of all of a sudden were like, yo, Seth Curry and Trey Burke can't do this anymore. Like, they need to do that to Tim Hardaway. Like, hopefully you can figure out the Luka thing. But, like, the rest of y'all, y'all can't score. Like, we have to turn your water off.
So it basically turns into, like, Portland's game plan against Jokic in game one. It's like, all right, you are really freaking good. We don't really have a great one-on-one answer for you. Fine. Have fun, eat your heart out, score a bunch of points. We need to make sure that we're not in rotation. We need to make sure that these guys are not getting comfortable. Let's just take that away. So that's kind of what you're envisioning for the Clippers. Like, that's an adjustment for them. Just
I would think. I mean, hey, make Luka keep making these plays. I know the switches don't look great. I know everyone is tired of the switches, but go ahead. You destroy Zubac with those fadeaways. These guys can't score, but it's going to take better transition defense. It's going to take more awareness. It's going to take closeouts, not getting beat off the dribble by these guys, not letting Dallas get in the driving kick. Because if you're letting them do that and Luka's doing what he's doing, you are going to Cancun.
1, 2, 3, Cancun?
On 3.
Oh, man. Fair enough. Let's move on to Lakers Suns game 2. I have a Suns question I want to pose for you. In the event that Chris Paul is just not going to be there, I think he's going to try to gut it out and play, but let's say they end up holding him out because the shoulder is just too much. Like, what adjustments are you making from Phoenix side to kind of make that work offensively?
Well, it's tough because they need him to kind of balance out what the Lakers are trying to do defensively. But as far as what I would do if I was Phoenix, you're going to have to hopefully you can move Booker off ball more, try and get some more movement, try and use some of the angled screens that you had to use earlier in the season. But he's going to have to be a massive factor, and then Campaign's going to have to play. Like, it's just going to have to be Campaign hopefully making reads in Spain pick and roll. And then hopefully you get a better game from Devin Booker overall as far as playmaking goes. But if CP3 goes down, that's a lot for Devin Booker to handle. Not just having to score, consistently against this defense, but now he's got to make the right reads and make the right plays consistently. And I think you saw the Lakers really lock in on trying to take that away from him. So maybe you see more Javon Carter, but I don't know how much he moves the needle offensively. That's the tough part. It was pretty clear with CP3, there's a ceiling. I mean, without CP3, there's a ceiling. So you can't not run, which, I mean, they probably have to lean more sets, move away from a little bit of pick and roll, but it's tough.
That was actually going to be my next question for you. Like, who is the guard that kind of, I guess, takes the campaign role at that point? If he were to take more Chris Paul, and again, like this is a question from me. This is not me having any reporting that Chris Paul is going to be out or anything like that. This is a question that I have in my mind. Again, if you're just asking me what do I think Chris Paul is going to play in Game 3. I think he's going to continue to gut it out. But I'm just trying to think of what Phoenix can do here, because I think that quickly becomes the most important thing they have to worry about. Like, we could talk about what Anthony Davis did in Game 2, or Marc Gasol finally getting to play and kind of juicing the offense a little bit. It's about time. But ultimately, if Chris Paul isn't healthy, like, I don't know how much any of that matters in terms of Phoenix winning odds, because like if they don't have Paul, their chances for winning games, much less the series, it drops tremendously. So I guess if we do get to a point to where Paul just can't play, is it Javon Carter that gets more minutes? Is it Langston Galloway? Is it Etuan Moore? Is it some combination of those three? Or how would you lean in that front?
Of those three, I'd probably say Carter and then Moore would probably be the two that would get the crack at it. I'd probably go Carter first because 2 ends, give you some shooting, execute what you need offensively.
Okay. I mean, I also like, my initial thought was, I don't know if this is a Carter series, just because where he brings the most value is as a point of attack defender. And like, I don't see the matchup for him to where he like affects the Lakers in any way. Because if he does a great job defending like Alex Caruso, what does that really mean? Right? Because like Caruso isn't really initiating the offense like that anyway. So I think Galloway and Moore is kind of where I would lean between those three, just because they do bring some of the shooting. And in Galloway, well, in Moore's case specifically, he brings some movement shooting. And I think you need to find creative ways to kind of bend LA's defense, or you're going to need someone to kind of relocate with the way that the Lakers are probably going to continue to trap Devin Booker at this point. If that's going to be like a natural rotation because they're doubling, like, you're going to need someone that knows how to find those pockets of space and kind of make, have those pathways to make those kickouts, and then can kind of cash in from deep. So that's where I would lean.
Okay. Do you think CP3 can find it this series? Because outside of one stretch in the second quarter, it was tough.
I don't know how much he can do. Like, I mean that literally, of course, because the shoulder is very clearly hampering him. Like, he's still having trouble going to his right. He's still having trouble he doesn't have the same zip on his passes. He's struggling with ball security, which that never happens with Chris Paul. So that bothers me. And then figuratively, like, again, we talked about it when we were kind of previewing things. Like, I worried about what the Lakers' size would do to Chris Paul. It was never a matter of, can Chris Paul make pull-up jumpers? Of course he can. Can he make corner skips? Of course he can. Can he make, lob pass, whatever? Of course he can. But when you have the point of attack defenders that the Lakers have, and when you have the kind of size in the front court that the Lakers have, and when you have either AD or LeBron, and sometimes both, depending on what the pick and roll configuration is, when you have those two guys on the back line, whether to rotate or play the pass lanes or whatever, like, it's such a high degree of difficulty series for Chris Paul to begin with. And now you take away some of the range of motion in the shoulder. He can't pressure the defense in the same way, and he was going to struggle to do that anyway. But now he physically can't pressure defense because of the shoulder. He physically can't take the pull-up jumpers the way that he wants to comfortably. Like, it's so tough. I don't know, like outside of walking the ball up and kind of directing things and pitching the ball inside to Devin Booker to let him work and kind of helping direct traffic off the ball, like outside of that, like I don't know what his on ball value is at this point.
Well, no, it's tough. I don't know what happened, but in that second quarter, he's able to find something. So I thought at least, hey, he doesn't have his fastball, but he can still throw it.
Right.
Maybe 2-3 times a game, maybe for a 2-minute stretch or so. But then in that second half, he didn't look right. He telegraphed a skip pass, which is extremely unlike Chris Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went from, hey, I can get 2 mid-ranges off, I can hit a Smitty, to looking like he was clearly in pain and hobbled. And he can't be that version.
Yeah.
If he can kind of float around, direct traffic, maybe find it every now and then, they could probably live with that. But if it's, hey, you can't even play, I don't know what you do against that defense.
Yeah, like that's kind of where I'm at, because it just from a physicality standpoint, or just from a size perspective, like he was already behind the 8 ball, and that's what makes it so tough, because you're compounding that with an actual injury now that affects literally everything he does. So like just going back to game 1 when he was kind of hurt and he was still out there gutting things out, and it was, the Lakers continued to send traps to Devin Booker. We talked about this on the pod Monday, but they were rotating off of Paul at that point, because like, okay, well, if Devin Booker's able to make the kick out to Chris Paul, like he's not gonna shoot, or we don't really trust him to knock down shots. And like even going to game 2, like Chris Paul was 2 of 5 from the field. Like he wasn't very efficient. Did not take a 3 in that game. Split a pair of free throws, and Chris Paul's one of the best free throw shooters of the modern era. So that's a tell there. Like, okay, if this guy that's consistently between like 88 and 92% from the free throw line, if he's splitting free throws, we have a problem on our hands. And it stinks that it's come down to this. Because as someone that has loved watching the Suns all year long, B, picked the Lakers in 6 anyway, to see the series kind of come down to, well, Chris Paul doesn't have an arm to work with, it's disheartening on both counts.
Well, let me get you out your vibe real quick.
Okay.
What did you think? I thought the Lakers defense was really good. But before I get to that, what did you think of the storyline where Anthony Davis just didn't talk to anyone for 36 to 47 hours before dropping 30?
That's cool, I guess. Like I
didn't know why it kept getting mentioned. I was confused.
like shoot, like I don't like. I just find it hard to lean into that kind of stuff, man. Like at the end of the day, it's basketball. Like it's.
They said he was Anthony Davis.
Oh God. No. Absolutely not. But I mean, I guess we can shower the Lakers with a little bit of praise. I mean, that was on offense anyway, because we've talked about the defense. Their defense was just ridiculous that entire game. Particularly in the fourth quarter. Their defense was insane.
Well, even the fourth quarter, what they did to Devin Booker, I seem to be the minority on this, but the shifts they made to kind of take away the reads he had in game 1, because we talked about after game 1, he was great, but they doubled over and over and over, and he was just scoring and carving them up, taking that away. They mixed it up to where, hey, we're in a drop when you come off. But as soon as you get to this elbow free throw range, the big is coming up. Like, we're not going to give you that shot. We're going to help on this roll, and we're not going to give you your pull-up look. So those 2 normal rhythm things you think you might have on this play, both of them are gone about the same time. And the secondary thing they did was, if the big did step up, that guard that was chasing Booker on his hip dove right to the big.
Mm-hmm.
And so, hey, you think you got me? That pass is taken away too. So it was like, wow. And I thought just the way they mixed it up, threw some switches in there, just to take his rhythm away, take those reads away. I thought he had a tough time adjusting to it. So I want to see how he comes out in game 3, because that's one of those things that can work. But I don't know, once you get some film on it, it might be a little bit different. But I thought the Lakers adjusted, man. The Suns were eating them up with empty corner looks. The Lakers were doing a better job of containing that role. I thought Andre Drummond did a good job. I thought obviously Marc Gasol came in and immediately did Marc Gasol things as far as sniffing things out, rotating, being in the right spot. The Lakers needed that. And then, like you said, the fourth quarter, that defense they played down the stretch was huge. I do have a question for you.
Okay.
I'm going to jump away from the defense real quick. Did you think Phoenix got a little too try and do a little too much when they switched the matchup to start the second half?
It was a little bit odd to me because I didn't think they had to do that. Like, force the Lakers to make that decision, if that makes sense. It did feel a little early to me.
I thought it was odd. Like, I feel like that's in the back pocket, but now all of a sudden you kind of open LeBron and AD up, and I don't want Bridges near Anthony Davis if you can help it. No disrespect. That kind of got them going. Things were off to the races. Are you worried about DeAndre Ayton defensively after the second half of that game?
Man, Anthony Davis got to the line a lot.
He did.
He got to the line a lot. And like, this is the worry. Well, this is part of the worry about Ayton having to defend AD in particular. Because, I mean, you saw the good of it in game 1. It's like, okay, well, if AD's going to bail you out with jumpers, like, Ayton has the size, he has the length, he has the mobility to get out there and contest shots or whatever. If AD is now like attacking off the catch, if they're running some stuff above the break, if he's operating as a screener or whatever, or if someone's setting something for him, or if he's just trailing it and relocating, he's catching on the move and he's attacking downhill. Now we got some issues because now you have Ayton off his base a little bit, and he can get a little handsy if that's the case. So once you have DeAndre Ayton thinking about things, that's a problem. Like, it's a similar point that you made about Yusuf Nurkic earlier in the pod. Like, if you're giving him something more to think about, all that, there's a slight hesitation is all he needs to get beat. And with Ayton, it's the same thing. Like, if he has to think about navigating something else, or like, okay, AD's catching it on the move. What move is he about to throw out there? Is he about to cross over? He's going to stop on a dime for a pull up. Is this about to flow into something else? Is going to be a kick out? He's going to relocate somewhere else and then kind of cut in from the wing now. Like, once you add all of that stuff in for him to kind of think about, it gets tough. And if Anthony Davis is able to get you off balance, he's going to get to the rim. And if he gets to the rim, you either have to, you're going to be on a post or you're going to foul him. And Anthony Davis got to the line a lot.
No, yeah. And when we talked about it in the lead up, that was kind of my concern with Ayton, is when you take him out of just being asked to do one thing or doing one thing really well and make him start thinking, things happen. Even just the switch to guarding Drummond. Now he was in a different role. He was the weak side help guy. That didn't go so great. Now they're running elbow action for Anthony Davis. Now Ayton has to navigate screens. I think AD hit a 3. Now your AD's in space. Now you're, instead of being in the action, you're trying to help figure out where to go. That becomes a lot. And if they get into that bag for AD, then I start to get concerned, because even in the first half, it was clear, even with the fouls, they should feel good about what Ayton was doing. Even with the increased drives, hey, you can still contest, keep it in front, and then hopefully you keep shooting that jumper. But it'll be interesting to see. What else I have? Why did LeBron do Cam Johnson like that? Like, consistently? But that was rude. He didn't have to do that.
He did not. Like, I guess concern it's probably too strong of a word, but like, where are you at on LeBron? Because like he played better in game 2, but like he still hasn't looked like LeBron in this series. Like the dosage of post up still isn't there. The driving aggression still isn't really there. Like, is this him still kind of picking his spots? Do you think it's the ankle a little bit? Is it like, what is it with LeBron? What are you seeing with LeBron in this series?
I think he's picking his spots. I think he's trying to give AD the room to get going. I think he knows he can get it going. I think when they need certain things, he does. But I think he knows what the Lakers ultimately need is for Anthony Davis to be rolling. And so I wouldn't say it's a disservice, but it doesn't necessarily help them in the long run if LeBron goes out there and drops 40 in game 2. Mm-hmm. They need the big fella to get going. So I'm not quite worried about LeBron. He just seems very contained. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Very contained. I don't know if he's saving it. I don't know how to describe it, but contained. But the Suns fought, man. It was fun to watch them battle.
Oh, that they did. Like, they are not lacking in heart at all. They are very much going to give the Lakers their best punch every time down, which is a cliche thing to say, but it's also a very true thing to say. Like, Monty Williams has those guys playing ridiculously hard. They are a very smart bunch, still a talented bunch overall, but like it's also hard to kind of ignore the Chris Paul cloud and all of this.
Yeah, the Chris Paul cloud is tough, but like, if you remember that the Phoenix was right there. When Anthony Davis passes up a 3-point shot, they're right there. It looks like they're about to take momentum. And then that closing lineup came in and changed everything. And that's kind of my concern too. Like, whenever the Lakers do go to the AD at the 5 lineup late, especially with no Chris Paul, where do you go? Like, what do you do?
You pray. That might be the best answer. I feel like this is a natural transition point. How concerned are you about the Heat?
I chose them to win. I am concerned. I'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. That was a very, we're sick of y'all, it's not going to be y'all type of win from Milwaukee. Now, it's a whole lot of threes, but that kind of blow can bleed to the next game. The tricky part for Miami is Milwaukee seems ready to make adjustments when they have to, and they seem like they're just not willing to let Bam or Jimmy get going. Mm-hmm. Like, Brook Lopez refuses to move. He is going to be in the paint. Doesn't matter what Bam does. And what they're doing with Jimmy Butler defensively is pretty much saying, hey, man, it's not going to be you, buddy. So you can tell when he makes those drives, the Jimmy drives where he's trying to probe, trying to see if he can get some help, all that good stuff. They stay home on those. Mm-hmm. They stay home on those. But when it looks like he's trying to turn the corner, they help. Mm-hmm. And that subtle defense, that's tough. So Jimmy's walking a fine line, and they're not giving him any of the switches. They're not giving him any of the normal reads, any of the normal looks. So now he's either forcing it, searching it, or going against help defense. And having to deal with Giannis and PJ Tucker, also not ideal for him. The Bam deal, again, it's got to be, I feel like they're a guard short, because you look at Bam, the way that Brook is playing off of him, there's really only one guy who can really make him pay. And that's Duncan Robinson. Mm-hmm. Because when you look at the matchups, usually it's what Drew's guarding none, Giannis is on Butler, Middleton's on Duncan. None of those handoffs are ideal. as far as Brooks not moving, and most of those guys can navigate pretty well. So it's not like you can hand off to Jimpy and he'll turn the corner because they're just going to give him a pull up. And it's not like, if Bam comes out, takes 4 jumpers, would you accomplish? Like that's my issue for Miami. I don't know how they get into the rhythm unless they get someone else going. Like unless Kendrick Nunn loses his mind, and now you have Nunn and Duncan you can go to on either side. Like the issue is I don't know how they bend Milwaukee's defense right now. I guess that'd be my concern, my ranty concern.
Ranty concern. No, like I think it's valid. Like they just have not been able to attack the drop consistently in a way that makes Milwaukee sweat, I would say. Like game 1, you got the big Duncan Robinson game. Goran Dragic also was able to get loose and pick and roll. But ultimately, that was kind of it. And to your point about being a guard short, like you went to the Robinson thing, I was about to point out, like Kendrick Nunn has given Miami virtually nothing through the first 2. And, while Robinson gives you the movement shooting, against that drop, working as a handoff guy, a lot of pick and rolls. I mean, they're basically 1 or 2 dribbles, so it wasn't like a traditional pick and roll or anything like that. But Duncan Robinson was bringing it that way. Kendrick Nunn is your purest like pull-up threat on this roster. A guy can get to the pull-up 3, can especially get to that pull-up mid-range too, whenever. And like those shots just have not fallen at all. And it was already going to take him to shoot a little bit above his head to make Milwaukee blink. Like I think he has the skill set to make those shots. But I think it would have taken a little bit of overperformance to make Milwaukee blink. And he's underperforming drastically right now. So if I'm thinking of an adjustment that I would expect to see in game 3, like again, this is me just making a guess. This isn't source or anything like that. But like I would put the odds at like 95-5. Like I'm 95% sure Goran Dragic is starting game 3. Like I think Spo's gonna pull that card because they need somebody credible to get that offense going within the starting unit. Because Bam just doesn't know what to do right now. He has not been able to walk the line between get the shooters open, get myself open, put pressure on the rim. That's just a tightrope that he has walked poorly in this series. That's not a death nail on him. That doesn't mean he's always going to struggle with it or anything like that, but he's been flat out bad at it through 2 games. With Milwaukee putting Giannis on Jimmy Butler, that's a lot of length for him to deal with. Your point about the way Milwaukee defends, the way that he probes is a very sound one because he's able to get like loose change on that kind of thing 2 or 3 times a game normally. Even if he isn't in super scorer mode, he's able to just kind of find random buckets like that. And Milwaukee's taking that away. If you take away the randomness with Butler, you're just left with who he is. And who he is a guy that you're not scared to let shoot because he's just not that kind of threat. So if he can't get you random buckets, you're not worried about him as a pull-up threat, and you're walling off the rim anyway, what is Jimmy Butler? Like, it just kind of gets tough. And if he's not bringing any real equity as a scorer, what is his passing doing? Because the secret there is that he's kind of like, he averaged like 21, 7-7 this year. Like, he wants to pass and set guys up first to begin with. So if he can't do that, and then you're taking away virtually any easy scoring read that he would get, then it's a bunch of hesitation. And then your number 2 guy, Bam Adebayo, is also struggling to walk this tightrope. So now you're stuck with Duncan Robinson needing to be above his head, and very quietly, Duncan Robinson only got 6 3-point shots up in game 2. He made 7 in game 1. That's a problem. Milwaukee was able to tighten that up a little bit. Again, you got virtually nothing from Nunn. Like, he had to assume more offensive responsibility because Butler and Bam were, again, kind of taken out of the element, and Nunn didn't have the shots going. The only other guy you really had was Goran Dragic. So I think that's going to be your counter. Like, just have another pick and roll creator out there. So once you're with the starting unit, you're going to have those handoffs or fake pick and rolls with Duncan Robinson against the drop. You're going to have Goran Dragic that can give you something as a scorer in pick and roll, and also has that kind of lock chemistry with Bam Adebayo. So if he can get downhill, maybe you can unlock Bam as a roller a little bit, give him some easy ones, maybe gain some confidence, and then you kind of flow from there. But man,
that's the other thing. Milwaukee, is not letting Bam Adebayo do much in pick and roll.
mm-hmm.
Like the slips that Bam's been known for, can't do it. And it's just like I feel like he's rolling into a person before he rolls into Brook, and I feel like that's been tough. Like Miami's got to get some type of movement going. They got to get some cutting. They got to get something to move Milwaukee's defense around besides just handoffs. So they've got to try and use what Milwaukee's trying to do against them and get some movement going. Try and get them to commit in a different way.
It has to be more empty corner. Like I feel like that's the low hanging fruit there. But man, I mean, even with that, there's just so much length on the floor for Milwaukee. They can still find ways to kind of jump things up. And even if they are working empty corner, like it's also going to depend on who they're running the empty corner look with. Like I think if it's with Goran, they can probably find some good stuff. But man, it's tough because like just in terms of the speed of it, I don't think Goran and Kendrick Nunn gets to his pull up a little bit quicker. So I think he'll be able to find those gaps a little faster. But Goran Dragic, his pull up jumper is a little bit, I mean, his jumper is more reliable, but it's also more of a set shot. Like he kind of stops on a dime and then gets into his jumper. That gives Milwaukee time to kind of rotate over and contest the shot. So I don't know. Like there's no great answer.
No, there's not. So I mean, if you're Miami, hopefully you can get some hot shooting. Maybe the defense will pick up a little bit and see if you can get them back in the mud. You know, because I mean, that game got out of hand real quick, and Miami never really got it back in hand. But that thing escalated quickly, like that. That's one of those games where you refresh the score if you're not watching. You're like, whoa, what happened? I gotta give Milwaukee credit though. Again, all that stuff I was talking about after game one where they weren't attacking the pressure points, they fixed just about a lot of it. And they were attacking mismatches, using Giannis in slips, putting guys in pick and roll, show and recover, open things up. Like that's progress. Like that's them being aware enough to know, hey, just in case you guys think that the defense is the strength, we can do this as well. Like kind of just little cracks at the formula that Miami's presented. And I still think Jrue Holiday ultimately is going to be such a deciding factor for Milwaukee, just because of what he can do playmaking wise, scoring wise. But I like the irony of drop defense being Milwaukee's end, a year full of switches and experiments, and playoff success being based on Brook Lopez staying in the paint. Right. We get Budenholzer, all that noise, and hey guys, it works.
It's funny, like, and this is something that I was thinking about after game one in particular, because like as someone that remains very high on Milwaukee's bandwagon, and like how I've kind of.
What do you mean? You're the chief conductor. You're the CEO.
Not the CEO. Oh man, but no, like someone has made the point a bunch about Milwaukee trying to switch and do different things. Like I think what was kind of undersold going into this series is that, and we talked about it during the preview pod, but like it was still going to be on Miami to make Milwaukee bend first. Like the thing about Milwaukee switching isn't that switching was going to become their base. It's that when they need to do so, they can do it. But you still have to make enough shots and force enough rotations for Milwaukee to be like, okay, now let's go to this counter that we've been working on all the time. And like Miami just has not, they haven't pressured Milwaukee in that way.
No, they haven't at all. I think one of the questions we had asked each other in the preview was, can Miami make Milwaukee think and they make them bend, and the answer's been no so far. And if that continues, I don't know what you do. You know, it's gonna take a big swing. Tyler Hero's gonna have to make some shots.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Oh, you thought a pun was coming?
I did. That's the second change up of the pod.
Hey, a great pitcher has more pitches. You start with one, right? Just like in the show, you got to get more pitches. I got 2 right now.
Oh man, I will let it rock.
Do we have time for the mailbag?
You know what? We can absolutely go mailbag.
I feel like we have thousands and thousands and thousands of questions that have stacked up from the dunkers embracing their bounce that I still do not have access to because I don't have the password.
Sir, if you would simply scroll up in your messages, you would have said password as I've given it to you.
It says sleep well.
All right, let's get into some mailbag questions before we close this thing out. This one comes from Lazarus. He says, "Hey guys, loving the show and the deserved shine you're getting for giving the people what they need. I just wanted to follow up on something from an earlier podcast. Nekias mentioned that he didn't really believe in drop coverage being the core of an effective playoff defense, but said he wasn't going to get into it. Nah, man, get into it. What should the core of an effective playoff defense be? Isn't an effective playoff defense more keyed by personnel than scheme? Talk it out." So, like, the take that I've been percolating on for like a year and a half at this point is that I don't see a drop defense being super successful later in rounds, because I think just on a very basic level, the rise of pull-up / movement shooting just makes it tough to play that as a base. And I think as you get into the postseason, you want to remove as many automatics as possible. Like, you want to force your opponent into counters. And I think if you're allowing your opponent to walk into a game or into a series or whatever, and you say, okay, if we run this action, we are going to be able to get this shot right here whenever we want to. I think that is inherently problematic, particularly as you get into like the second round, the conference finals, and the finals in particular. So I feel like you're going to need some, like, it can be a blend. I'm not necessarily saying you can never play drop coverage, but like as a base, I kind of struggle with it as a playoff defense because you just have those built-in pockets. Like, I think selective switching is probably the way to go. Stay attached when you can, and if you feel like an advantage is about to be created, then switch, and then you kind of help beyond that if you have to, depending on what kind of mismatch is created. But that's just kind of the way that I think about it.
I get it. I think drop defense can be a piece of it. Maybe 2.5 quarters, you can pull that off with the right personnel. I'm going to go left field here.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's lineup versatility.
Okay.
That's going to be the core of your most effective playoff defense. You need to be able to not necessarily have all the schemes. You need to have the lineup that can adapt to whatever that team is throwing at you. So you need to have the big who can be at the level. You need to have the big who can be in a drop if, X guard is out. You need to have the team that can switch. And if you can do those things and kind of match your strengths against their weaknesses, I think you pop. Like, I think the more lineup versatility you have, the more you can survive some of these matchups, the deeper the run you can get in this NBA. Just like the Lakers being able to play big and being able to play small, like that makes a difference to me. Like the net to throw out a million combinations, that makes a difference for me. If you have a base, eventually someone's gonna probably play it off the court. That's my second ranty.
You're not down for the rants?
No. Well, no, because I don't land the dismount on my rants. Like they just kind of go, and then I'm like, I said what I said. Period.
I see.
Like I'll never get to the "we saw you" in my rant.
Aw. Ooh. Okay. Well, that's just kind of where I was on drop. Again, to your point, like, I think it'd be a piece. Like I just worry about it as a base because I just don't want to give my opponent like built-in shots. But all right. Next question comes from Toby. He asked, "Who is the best American center in the NBA right
That's interesting. How much non-trouble can I get in with this question?
now?" Oh, this is gonna be good. Okay.
Let's see. Do we count? Excuse me. Anthony Davis is the center.
Anthony Davis doesn't count Anthony Davis as a center. So no, I'm not gonna count him as a center.
Okay. Do we get Bam?
See, that's where I was gonna go first. That's where I was gonna go first. And I was like, well, he does have I think Nigerian descent as well.
Oh, you went for it. You brave.
Is that bravery? Like I don't. It's just
No, I just don't know.
so like I believe that's where it is with Bam. So if Bam counts, I think it's him. The second guy I thought about was Cat, but I believe he is also Dominican.
You hold on. Let me Google that before we get canceled.
What? This is not me trying to be canceled. I'm like 65% sure on that. But if not Bam, if not Cat, then I guess like this. Do we go like Jared Allen?
Was this question just so you could say Jared Allen was a top 5 center?
No, but like
Dominican Republic.
Okay. See, all right. I know some things.
You know a lot of things, man. So basically, well, here's the next question. Well, Miles Turner or Jared Allen?
That's a good question.
I'm on a heater.
That's a really good question. You know what? It's probably Jared Allen right now.
Wow, that's interesting. Does Christian Wood count as a center?
I always think of him as a 4, but like I'm not super tied to that. If you want to call him a 5, that's fine.
All right.
Would you go Christian Wood?
No, I'm still going AD/Bam. Is Mason Plumlee a top 5? Is he though? Look at how we've listed. Is he a top 5 American center?
Okay, let's take out. I'm going to take out Bam for a moment, right? So, hold on. Let's do it this way. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up some 2K ratings for centers, right? Just to get a rough list up here.
I'm just saying, as you do that, I think Anthony Davis, Bam. Most people go there, but we have what? Jared Allen, Miles Turner.
Okay, so according to 2K, right? Oh, these are American flags. That's fun. Okay, so according to 2K, the answer would be Christian Wood is listed as a center. Christian Wood is an 84 overall. Jared Allen is also an 84 overall. We get Andre Drummond, who is an 83. Montrezl Harrell, who is an 83.
Oh, we're counting Montrez. I don't know if we're doing that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the flag, man. I don't. Okay. Montrez is an 83. Mitchell Robinson is an 82.
Mitchell Robinson. There we go.
Wendell Carter Jr. and Rashawn Holmes are also 82s.
All right.
So,
all right. Now we're getting into some Mason Plumlee disrespect.
Mason Plumlee is an 81, as is Robert Williams and also Bobby Portis.
Okay.
So there you go. Mason Plumlee is not. Oh man, Mason Plumlee is not far off, I guess.
So Mason Plumlee, top 5 American center.
He's hashtag in the hunt. So Thank you, Toby. Thank you, Toby, for the question. That is all right. Let's close this one off with something that's more in our wheelhouse. I believe you're going to appreciate this one, especially Steve. This one comes from Andrew. He says, "Hi, Nekias," because I know Steve isn't reading this. "You've heard me sing your praises many times, but your podcast is utterly fantastic. So I thought I'd ask you this. Rank the Spurs' young core based off of future potential, assuming good health for everyone. That core being as follows: DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker IV, Jakob Pertl, and Devin Vassell."
Always love a good power ranking. Good to see it back. Am I kicking things off?
Yeah, we're gonna let you kick things off. You are the rank guy.
I mean, I can't even be the rank god.
Yes, you can be the rank god. That's fine.
Okay. All right.
We can hashtag it.
It's kind of whack, but it's okay. No, I like it. Let's go from bottom to top. Jakob Poeltl is going to be last for me. Future potential. Lonnie Walker.
Okay.
Keldon Johnson.
All right.
Devin Vassell. Derek White. DeJounte Murray.
Okay, this is an interesting list for you. You know what? I'll also start from the bottom up. I'm gonna copy you. Pertl is last for me. With it being a future potential, I think Derek White is next for me. Just because if I'm not mistaken, he's the oldest player on this list. So I go Pertl last. Derek White is next. Keldon Johnson would be next for me. I'll go. I'm gonna go Devin Vassell. I'm gonna go Lonnie Walker, and then I'll go DeJounte Murray.
We flip-flop Lonnie and Derek White?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have White a lot lower. Yeah, well, yeah. That's where it ends up being swapped.
I think, for me, Lonnie, I don't know, not that Lonnie can't get better, but I don't know if he can just not just be a better version of this.
Like,
I think Derek White's pretty good. If he can stay healthy, he's pretty good. So,
like, I think if you're just asking like who's the best player of those six, like I think Derek White is second on the list behind DeJounte. But like factoring in like potential, and I think White's already 27. I want to say, because I think he was a 23-year-old rookie, I believe. So I think just with that being the framing of it, I had him lower on my list. As far as Lonnie goes, like I do think uber athletic 3-and-D is kind of the archetype for him right now. But I've also seen some passing flashes from that man, in which, like, I don't know how many of those on-ball reps he gets in San Antonio. But I think if he's able to get them, like if DeMar isn't there next year, or even if San Antonio ends up consolidating some of this guard/wing talent that they have, because they do have a lot of it, and he gets somewhere where he's able to explore, like I think there's more there for him on ball. Like, you know, he can shoot, he can fly around on defense. Like in transition, he's obviously a threat as a guy that can trail field the wings or just dunk on people. So I think there's more on ball chops for him.
I like it.
There's my Lonnie Walker take. I feel like you want to slander my Lonnie Walker take.
I don't. I have a question for you.
Okay.
So during the Knicks-Hawks game, LeBron James sent out a tweet.
Oh God.
And we're just gonna power rank the funniest things about this. Shout out to LeBron. But he said, man, it's loud as hell in MSG, that joint rockin'. The word as was A with 2 asterisks, and hell was 2 hockey sticks. Now, is it funny that he censored the word as because he was just saying AS? that he did the backwards hockey sticks, or that he corrected the tweet after he sent it.
Oh my God. Okay, it's all freaking ridiculous. It's so freaking ridiculous. Like, I love LeBron, but like, that's freaking ridiculous, bro. That man is, oh man. As the resident corny man on the pod, that is one corny individual. And I mean that endearingly. LeBron's just a corny man. That's fine.
That's Space Jam, man. Gotta keep that Space Jam money right.
But he censored the wrong word. Like, I tweeted about it, and I'm just like, why did he censor? And it was like, but Nekias, you say LMBO, and I was like, no. I'm not talking about the hockey sticks. Let's go back a word. Read what he tweet. Read the tweet again. Please revisit the tweet, and then just to get like a streamline of replies, like, oh wait, now I get it. That takes the cake for me. That's hilarious. That got censored.
I just want to realize. I wonder at what point did he realize? Whoops. Let me go ahead and fix that real quick.
Took him what 4 minutes to send the correction. I was like, someone had to tell him, like, hey, bro, I don't think you meant what you thought you meant.
24 minutes to throw the AS out there.
Good Lord.
Also, what do you think about TNT throwing these tweets on the screen? I was watching Memphis, Utah, and all of a sudden Todd Gurley's talking about hoops, and I was confused.
Like, I think it's cool for like interaction and such. But yeah, it was funny because I was like laughing at the LeBron tweet, and then I was laughing at my mentions about my tweet about the LeBron tweet, and then like 5 minutes later, I see the LeBron tweet on television during Knicks Hawks, and I'm just like, you guys, no. But to answer your original question, it's him censoring that to begin with. That's number one by a very wide margin. The correction is number two, and then the hockey sticks is three. Like, I'm fine with that level of corny. It just kind of is what it is. As like I say, LMBO, like, it's fine.
You do say LMBO.
It's true. The brand is the brand is the brand. Speaking of brands, I think we have reached the end of this podcast. I'm going to have a nice glass of Martinelli's apple juice to cap off this wonderful podcast. So if you have not already, please subscribe, rate, review the Dunker Spot podcast. We are on Apple, on Spotify, on Google, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. You can find me on Twitter at Nekias NBA. You can find Steve Jones Jr. at Steve Jones 20. And with that, we will catch y'all on Monday.